In my son's short 26 years, he was a chef, an Eagle Scout, a church youth leader, a Newark Police Department cadet, but most of all, he was a friend, a nephew, a cousin, a grandson, a brother, and my son. Blake lived a life of community service, dedicated to fighting for the underdog, and a love for his family. He lived life to the fullest every day, laughing often and giving the best hugs imaginable. In early 2022, Blake became an asset protection associate for Home Depot. He worked to gain additional experience before applying to the Newark Police Department. When I spoke with Blake on our every Wednesday calls, he would tell me about his training at Home Depot. He would explain that he was trained to locate shoplifters within the store, document their actions, track shoplifters through the store, follow them outside and apprehend them. Then he would bring the shoplifters back into the store to complete a theft report, take photos, and then turn them over to law enforcement if required. When I asked my son about the risk of his new job at Home Depot and if he was provided any personal protective equipment, he quickly would tell me no. I would ask if he'd been issued any bulletproof vests, pepper spray, or safety gear, and he would again tell me no. During many of my calls, we would talk about the level of theft he experienced within Home Depot. He would tell me of the theft rings he would help gather evidence for local police departments and how excited he was to work with the officers. Blake would tell me about the many weapons he had pulled on him, including knives and guns, by shoplifters. When I asked about how he could manage to be safe, my son would tell me he could simply hide behind a post to avoid being shot or hurt. As a mom, my concerns began to grow at the lack of PPE he had been issued by Home Depot. All of my concerns and fears were realized by one phone call. On Tuesday, April 18th, the voice over the phone declared that my son had been shot. I quickly called Eaton Medical, where he had been transported, to get an update. I spoke with the emergency room doctor, and he simply told me to come as quickly as I could. I asked if I needed to gather my family, and he said yes. At that moment, I knew my son was dead. On April 18, 2023, 8 weeks ago today, at 2:15 Pacific Standard Time, my son was shot at close range by a shoplifter while working as an asset protection officer at Home Depot in Pleasanton, California. My son and his teammate had been called into action as Benicia Knapp attempted to steal a charger from the tool department. My son encountered Knapp at the back of the store, where her getaway driver, David Guillory, was awaiting to flee the scene. According to witness statements, my son took the item from Knapp and walked back into the store. Knapp followed my son back into the store. When he turned around, she pulled out her gun from her purse and shot my son in the heart of all places.
It's tough to listen to this mother talk about how her son was gunned down, shot in the back when he turned around at Home Depot, and to hear how much this kid loved his job and liked working with the law enforcement to catch retail criminals. The whole story is heartbreaking, and it's a shame that it's gotten this far. We have politicians that are letting criminals, letting shoplifters and people who go in and loot stores off the hook, and trying to say, all right, as long as you didn't steal over $1,000 of merchandise, then here's a slap on the wrist. And at places in California, we see this, and we just see this light on crime, soft on crime attitude in American cities run by Democrats across the nation. And it's a shame, as if there's no consequence to shoplifting and looting. Of course there is. Once you let that go, that's going to become the norm. That's going to signal to people, to criminals, that they can do this and get away with it, and it's going to put people out of business. Companies aren't going to be able to stay in those areas that allow for this, and they're not going to be able to employ people. They're not going to be able to train people and raise them up to managers and better themselves, they're going to just be an empty lot because nobody can stay in business. They keep getting robbed as long as it's less than $1,000. This is a major issue that the Democrats don't seem to be taking seriously, and I'm glad that this mother had her day in Congress here and was able to get her point across during this hearing and tell her son's story, because I think it needs to be heard by Washington, D.C. and politicians in Congress. So let me know what you guys thought of it in the comments, and as always, thank you for watching.